Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Investor Frame podcast. I'm super excited to have my guest and friend, Carson Demick. He's a 22-year-old entrepreneur who absolutely crushes it in the wholesaling space. I know he's started to do some other things in real estate. And, I've just always been impressed by how he approaches business. So I'm excited to have him here today to share his story. Welcome in, Carson. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
What I love so much about what you do, Carson, is you do a lot of these things naturally. You've got some of these things that aren't natural for most people. I know it wasn't natural for me, but you're able to start and stop something when new data presents itself. And it's like, hey, even though I decided that this is what I wanted to do, when a new path, a more efficient path forward presents itself, you're able to be like, I never named the puppy. So you're able to slide right into that optionality. And that, in my mind, is the character trait of successful people. They understand that engineering luck requires you to be like open to optionality.
Yeah, I think that like, I wouldn't have looked at myself like that in the past, especially with real estate, because I think I definitely got attached to the identities that even being like, becoming some sort of a name in the local real estate community, getting invited to speak at the local landlords association meetup, people calling me the quote Flint man, that stuff does stuff subconsciously when you hear about an opportunity in Detroit, because like you said, I've been named. I would assume other people naming you can do almost as much damage as you naming yourself if you allow it to. But I guess, there's always been, even throughout, the times where I've been a lot more just focused, a lot more, I guess, egotistical about what I know and who I think I am. There's always been like, inquisitive, like mindset of there's something I'm still missing. Like, because there's, on a really fundamental level, because there is always a better option. Like there's always a better option. And so I was always open to like finding out those better options. But then what it came down to is, since I was doing it out of fear of like missing out in the future, trying to control that outcome, I never was able to follow through on the principles. Like, for example, I joined the Whale Club when I had 5 other things on my plate that I hadn't taken care of, that were not running smoothly, employees that were not being taken care of well, all this other stuff out of self gain, like, trying to gain for myself, thinking that would bring me fulfillment or maybe put me further in the name that I had for myself in whatever way, which it didn't. But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm lucky with that too. Like, it is like, I'm grateful that I never stopped to like think outside the box. And I pride myself in, I guess, being open-minded about new ideas. And it's almost like a muscle too. Like, the more you are open to change, which starts with you not focusing on the outcome, because you'll never know the outcome. So why focus on it? But you can know the principles. And once you know your principles, then you can determine which changes align with your principles. And if you're basing the actions on those, once you make those changes, if you're basing the action steps on those principles, you can do it out of intention instead of like obligation to not miss out. And then you can really thrive just off those principles, because you're not worried about the downside as much.
Yeah. I mean, your journey is just so, I mean, I would say it's, a lot of us can relate. Let's just say you've talked a lot so far about FOMO and fear. Fear manifests itself in a lot of different ways. One of the things that I found I struggled with was fear of being left behind. So for example, you go to these masterminds and I meet a 22-year-old kid who's doing 10 deals a year. And I'm like, why am I not doing 10 deals a year? Right. And so it's like a trap of comparison. You find yourself trying to compare yourself to other people. And it's really, it's really like deep down what it is fear and insecurity about what you're doing and where you're at in your journey. How have you dealt with that? How have you dealt with the fact is you took a pretty quick meteoric rise, right? And the reason you were able to do that is because you micro-stepped and you kept asymmetry in your favor. So you knew how to engineer luck. But your business has changed a little bit since the first time I met you.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me a little bit about how you've dealt with the comparison trap and how you're building your business now to lean into your unique disposition and your particular strengths, let's say.
So the first question, how have I dealt with the comparison trap? Honestly, I never felt like I really had to deal with it too much, or I never felt like I faced it head on too much, because what I ended up doing was just gravitating toward the one thing that I was, in my eyes, ahead of almost all people my age in, which was business. And so I neglected a lot of other things that I would have really enjoyed doing, or I may have really enjoyed doing, that would have probably served my bigger purpose better long term. But in the moment, that wasn't like a thought. So it was almost like I didn't compete if I knew I was going to lose, if I wasn't going to be first. And so joining Collective Genius even was like from the start, I kind of well, as long as I'm just on par with the other people, above 90% of them as far as my age. And I think it was more subconscious than conscious, because I would have lied to myself consciously and said, oh, I'm not doing this out of ego. I'm not doing this out of ego, but subconsciously, I thought as long as the majority of people view me X, this way, then I don't have to necessarily pursue growth in this area. But then it became well, this is the only area that you're working on. So this is really all you have going for you. So what else are you going to build? And now you have this huge support system, and now these people are expecting you to grow like they grew. And so I kind of just kept pursuing that. And then, and during all that, when you're pursuing it, at the end of the day for, your appearance, I guess you could say, as it relates to other people, you're almost forced to have FOMO, because you're worried about missing out on maybe at the end of the day, what they could think about you, or how you could be viewed by them. And so every little thing pops in, and it's well, this could make me be viewed this way, or make me be viewed this way. And so I kind of got to this point where I had all of the things on a level I felt was I'm not sure what the word is, but a level I felt was superior, I guess, to maybe the majority of my peers. And it sounds terrible to say, and it kind of is a terrible thing to move towards. But I got that, and once I got all of that, whether it was the cars or the money or the combination of everything, I don't even know what it was. It put me it kind of put me on my ass. I had this couple months of man, this is I don't want to get out of bed in the morning anymore. What's going on? I have what I've been looking for. I'm growing in this aspect. I'm hiring more employees. My business is growing. I went from doing 10 deals a month by myself to now we're doing 10 deals a month, and my salespeople are doing the deals. I'm helping my salespeople, but I still don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning. What is something's off. And so that was the pinnacle of me chasing myself and chasing the things of this world, as far as material possessions and, feeding the ego, all that kind of stuff. And then I kind of had a paradigm shift, you could say, on a pretty large level, that completely shifted my perspective of what really matters. And I think it was inevitable, for that to happen, just because I hit what in my head subconsciously somewhere I needed to hit to be who I needed to be at 22. And it was well, shoot, I'm 22 now. I'm feeling all these things of depression or not, all that kind of stuff. I've still got quite a bit of life to live. I can't go on like this. I got to figure something else out, because if I keep chasing this, I'm going to keep getting the same results mentally. And so it drove me to just at the end of the day, seek out understanding and perspective from different people that I consider whys, I guess you could say. And through that kind of journey, I was able to find what, I believe, and I'm still, I was able to pretty much find out that everything I was chasing for the wrong reason. And I was able to internalize that and have this moment of realization, like, this is not what this is about. And it's not what it should be about. And it's not what brings me joy anymore. So it just changed, my intentions behind everything changed. And so from there, the level I've been able to operate on has been unbelievable to me, because like on a day-to-day basis, and it's, I struggle like on some days or whatever, there's off days, but on the good days when I'm operating out of intention, like this new place of intention, like one example, okay, instead of doing 150 grand this month, I'm going to help my salesperson make an extra $1,000 so he can buy his kid X for their birthday. Like when I could somehow internalize and my intention changed, my why changed from serving myself to serving others, I can operate at such a higher level, I feel like, on a day-to-day basis, because it's not about me. So I don't feel like I have to control the outcome because my needs are met. So in reality, all the things I felt obligated to do that I was doing out of obligation, I wasn't obligated to do any of them.
Yeah.
My bills were paid with $3,000 a month.
I mean, and the obligations that we acquire in our businesses just become liabilities to us later, right? It's like, first of all, kudos to you for hitting your, financial certainty goals, right? We got to work on your business treasury. We got to make sure that you keep that cash working for you for the rest of your life. And
Right.
We'll talk more about that. But what it sounds like you realized is like what we talk about is the first wealth commandment, which basically says we want to get closer to the things that we want without chasing more and more. And that's a hard realization when you come to in business, where you realize that more is not actually getting you closer to what you want, like another car, another $100,000 check, like another trip to wherever. And you're like, I already did that. Like,
Right.
And that fall from crap, I can't solve my happiness by just more and more and more. To have learned that at such a young age is fortunate for you, right?
Absolutely.
I believe. And so you realize that it's not about chasing more. It's about actually getting closer to the things that you want out of life. And although money is a lot of our first problems that we often can solve, that we want to solve, because for a lot of us, it's hard to see past anything. That's fine. Start with money, right? But everyone that pursues money as a goal eventually realizes that it's not all about money, that ultimately these businesses and these investments should really be helping us get closer to what our true purpose is, our true goals. I say that I like to play business as a sport. It means I want to design my life and all the businesses that I own in a way that they're very reliable. They don't take a ton of time, because I get, shiny object. Like, I want to play this business. I want to see if I can solve this problem. So I've designed it in a way where that's not a bad thing. Go play. I'm trying to get closer and closer to that. And it sounds like what you're closer is, at least for right now. And obviously this is going to change because you're so young, right? The things that you want over time are going to continue to change. So
Right.
you've got to design this system that accounts for that, right? So right now you're getting a lot of value out of pouring into your employees, helping them solve different things. As you grow as a business owner, as an investor, as a leader, your scope is going to also change, right? So that journey of alignment is not a checkbox. I just had a great conversation earlier this year. Some people are like, figure out your why, as if it's some check box to make. It's like, well, guess what? What you wanted 3 years ago is probably very different than what you want today. It's reasonable to assume it's going to be very different than what you want 3 years from now. And it ties back into the whole naming the puppy concept, right? If you name the puppy on what your why is, and you don't give yourself ability and latitude to adjust that as more information comes in, you realize you might be able to make a bigger impact. You realize you might have a calling for something different. Well, I think you're going to be very well positioned for that, Carson, because you've already built that into your life and the way that you approach things. So I love that you had that quick realization. I guess what I would tell you is I've probably had that 2 or 3 times, right? So it'll continue to happen. And the more that we can all just continue to allow ourselves to change our mind, like I reserve the right to change my mind. I reserve my right to adjust, and we should give ourselves that grace.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to learn more about certainty and what we do inside the Whale Club, you can find the link below in the show notes to join our free community on Discord.